Hello and welcome to Physical Therapy, a movie podcast. We are here every week talking movies inspired by the world of physical media and beyond. My name is Kurt.
My name is Sam.
Sam, before we get started, we need to acknowledge a very special anniversary.
What?
It has been 1 year this week that we started this podcast. Congratulations to you, Sam.
We've done it.
We have done it. Thank you, everybody who has been listening to our show. It means the world to us.
Yeah, honestly, it's been a really fun year. We've had a really good time doing this show, and I hope people have been enjoying it. So thanks for hanging with us. You're all welcome to buy us as many Blu-rays as you want.
Please don't buy me any more Blu-rays. If you're enjoying this show, we would greatly appreciate you leaving a review and a rating for us wherever you're listening to this podcast. You can also find us on Instagram at PT Movie Pod. We would love to connect. On today's episode, we are recapping and diving into the brand new 4K, long awaited release of David Fincher's 2002 film Panic Room. This is, spoiler alert, one of my favorite movies of all time.
Wow.
Spoiler alert, not one of Sam's. So if you want to hear us kill each other on the mics,
We'll get there soon.
We'll get there soon. We'll leave a timestamp in the description of this episode if you want to jump right to Panic Room.
There will be spoilers. We're going to talk through this whole thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're going to recap the whole movie.
Yeah.
But first, Sam, let's check in on the week. What did you watch besides Panic Room?
I watched one movie at home, but it's for a future episode, and I don't want to spoil that yet.
Okay.
So otherwise, I went to the theater and saw Riff Raff.
What's Riff Raff?
It's like an independent, dark comedy, light mob family story, but the cast is nuts. It's Ed Harris, Jennifer Coolidge, Gabrielle Union, Pete Davidson, Bill Murray,
Okay.
and Louis Pullman.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, it's not anything that you need to rush out and see, but it's like a pretty funny, dark, independent comedy that I hadn't really seen or heard too much about, but was at one of the local Regals, so I saw that on a Tuesday afternoon. Pretty good.
Rated R?
Yes, very much so.
You love to hear it.
Then on Wednesday, I went with a friend to a movie called My Dead Friend Zoe that I made it 20 minutes into and left.
Okay.
I thought that movie was written and intended for Christian nationalists. So I said, no, thank you. I'm leaving now. I'm pretty sure it was one of those like secret God dramas.
Got it. Can't wait. Also with Ed Harris?
Yeah. I saw exactly one scene with him and I was like, you know what? He doesn't care. And Morgan Freeman.
Got it.
A lot of ADR, a lot of bad lighting, a lot of bad everything. But kind of a light week for me, all said and done.
Not bad, though. 2 trips to the theater. I respect it.
What have you been watching?
Sam.
Oh, God, what?
I watched a Kino Lorber 4K that you told me was not going to be good. And I'm here to tell you, you're dead wrong.
Let me guess. Reindeer Games.
Reindeer Games.
Damn, okay.
This is a 2000 release directed by John Frankenheimer.
Ben Affleck, Charlize Theron, Gary Sinise?
Yes, and a brief appearance by Ashton Kutcher. This is a like Christmas crime comedy thriller action movie. Ben Affleck plays a car thief who is just getting out of a 5-year prison sentence. His cellmate is due to get out, I think, right at the same time as him, the same day. His cellmate, who is also his best friend, has been in correspondence writing letters to Charlize Theron's character, who he's never met in real life, but they've fallen madly in love. And the day before the two of them are to be released, Ben Affleck's cellmate is killed in a prison fight, in a riot. And so Ben Affleck gets out of prison and assumes the identity of his dead cellmate in order to hook up with Charlize Theron. Shortly thereafter, Charlize Theron's evil brother, played by Gary Sinise, shows up and basically forces Ben Affleck into robbing the casino he used to work at, but he didn't in fact work there because he isn't who he says he is. His dead cellmate used to work at this casino. And it's a Christmas movie. Pretty silly, pretty fun, good action. That's not really necessarily true, but I was on the edge of my seat. Looks great. God bless Kino. My God.
It's a 4K?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty new, I think, came out
in the
maybe
past
January,
couple months.
maybe right for Christmas. Yeah. Excellent. Had a great time. I wouldn't necessarily recommend anybody blind buy this on 4K Kino necessarily. Don't take my word for it, but you should see it if you've never seen it and you're looking for that kind of came and went action movie from the turn of the 2000s.
I'm really happy for you. I'm happy you got another title out of your shame pile.
Me too. And, you know, it was fun to watch it with such low expectations. And 20 minutes in, hooked.
Sometimes it's all about setting, right? Sometimes you're in the perfect mood for a giant kind of pile of shit and you just make it work. And I don't mean pile of shit really degradingly.
Yeah.
I just mean it like, you know, sometimes it's exactly what you need at that moment.
Everybody making it seemed like they were having a good time. Everybody's kind of hamming it up. Frankenheimer behind the wheel.
Yo, you ever see Black Sunday?
I have it down there. I own it, but not yet.
Okay.
Is that him?
Yeah.
Shit. I got to watch that before they put a 4K out. I regret buying it.
That's a hell of a movie, dude.
John Frankenheimer is the guy who came in and took over the island of Dr. Moreau.
Yes.
He's old school. All right, Sam. Before we talk announcements, let's talk confessions. This is, of course, where we make space to reveal our sins to each other and talk about things we may have purchased or things that perhaps have arrived on physical media since last we spoke.
Diabolic DVD, a couple episodes ago, I acknowledged that I got a package from them that was pretty damaged, and they were totally cool about it. They accepted the return with the idea that a lot of these titles were out of print and that if they could find them, they would send it back to me. They found them and sent all 3 of them back, and they're in perfect condition, so very happy about that.
Nice.
Just wanted to give them a quick shout out.
Good on them.
And I broke my New Year's resolution and bought some movies that weren't on sale in any way. A couple episodes ago, we talked about how much of a good time I had seeing Hundreds of Beavers in theaters. And even though the limited edition is long sold out on Vinegar Syndrome, even the standard edition tends to come and go fairly often. So I wanted to grab that. I ordered a movie called Prospect, which is through a Vinegar Syndrome sub-label. My buddy at work told me about it. It stars Pedro Pascal and Sophie Thatcher.
Oh, shit. What's it called?
Prospect.
Okay.
It's like a smaller sci-fi movie that's supposed to be shot like really beautifully and really cool and uses a lot of practical effects to build the world that they're making. So I was pretty interested in that. And then we recorded an episode of a podcast that should be out fairly soon, but we're not totally sure on the date, with our friends over at VHUs podcast.
That's right.
And Dirk, the host of that podcast, told us about a movie called The Reflecting Skin that he said was his favorite movie of all time. And we had a nice conversation about that, amongst other things. So please check that episode out when it drops. But I had to add The Reflecting Skin to my Vinegar Syndrome order. That was like my big order for the week, those 3 movies. I don't know a lot about any of them, and that's kind of one of my favorite ways to go into a movie. So I don't read a lot about any of them. But I've heard really good things, other than Hundreds of Beavers, which I've seen, which I absolutely adored.
You just got a standard edition of Prospect.
Yeah, the limited edition is way sold out.
Yeah.
This is a couple years old at this point.
Damn, 4K.
Yep.
Fuck, grind.
Honestly, my buddy Clayton at work, he really talked this movie up a lot, and I'm really excited to see it.
2 of my favorite kind of recent actors.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Pedro obviously isn't that recent, but
I feel like he's kind of reaching the top of his, you know.
Yeah. I received a shipment of Hundreds of Beavers and The Reflecting Skin.
Oh, nice.
Yep. I also had a Diabolic order arrive from a long ago pre-order that was Arrow's recent 4K limited editions of Cruising, the wild Friedkin movie starring Al Pacino, as well as Deep Blue Sea, which I would love to do on this show, as well as a standard version of Studio Canal's 4K of Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation, starring Gene Hackman. And I was happy to get that.
Sure.
Happy to have that right now. Looking forward to rewatching that. Haven't seen it in a long time. Also, Sam, I got one movie from Amazon.
Oh, no. What was it?
And I'm so excited about it. I got a 4K. I don't think I knew this was on 4K, and it just popped into my brain. Went to see if it was there. Sure enough.
Was it 310 to Yuma?
It was not 310 to Yuma. I have that one.
Damn.
It was a little movie called Space Jam.
Oh my
When's the last time you've seen Space Jam?
Probably in theaters.
Hell yeah. Kim and I saw it at the New Beverly with Drew and Haley, his wife. And goddamn, Space Jam rocks, dude.
Dude, I got the Space Jam soundtrack and the Offspring's Americana in my Easter basket one year.
Wow.
Hell yeah, on CD.
I got MI1 on VHS in my Easter basket.
Nice. Dude, I got the MI2 CD, the soundtrack with that sick Limp Bizkit song.
And that sick Metallica song.
I think for graduating 8th grade, which was honestly it wasn't looking good there for a while.
So there you go. I think I have like 800 things in my Orbit cart right now, but I haven't pulled the trigger. So nothing to confess. Nothing to see here.
Man, I'm proud of you. This is our first confession corner without you having bought something.
Except Space Jam. Let's talk about announcements.
Yeah. What you got?
One announcement I just saw that I wanted to talk to you about, Sam. The Instagram page, The Disconnected, they announced that a company called Red Shirt Pictures, along with Synapse, is releasing possibly Prom Night on 4K.
Sure.
Hell yes. And then I think definitely Prom Night 2, 3, and 4. And then they're releasing the sequel to Fright Night, which I don't think I realized there was a sequel to Fright Night.
Apparently this movie, I think, is kind of in like rights hell. It's been hard to get a physical release of for a long time.
Okay.
I was lucky enough to see a 35 millimeter screening of it at the Hollywood this past October. And let me tell you, that movie is awesome.
Fright Night 2?
Yes.
Wow.
I think Fright Night 1 and 2 are like two of the best vampire movies from the 80s that kind of go under the radar, unfortunately.
Even the first one, I feel like that one's so respected, renowned.
It doesn't seem to come up in a lot of conversations around me or in my life.
Okay.
Like I don't ever hear people singing the praises of it that much. When it comes up, people are like, oh yeah, that's a great one. But I just feel like it's kind of forgotten.
You've wished for that one, right?
Yeah, I want both of them, really. So if Synapse is going to put out two, whether it's a Blu-ray or a 4K, I'm there for it.
Yeah, I just wished for Prom Night last week, I think. So here's hoping that that's for real.
Synapse has some really great releases too. They do a lot of Steelbooks, which I find to be kind of a bummer, but their releases are really loaded.
Suspiria, right?
Suspiria, Tenebrae, Phenomena, The Kindred.
I don't think I know The Kindred.
Fucking giant monster movie rules so hard.
There's a bunch of stuff coming from Scream and Shout that we just heard about. Scent of a Woman with Al Pacino. Hoo-ah.
That's what he won his first Oscar for, right?
I think that might be true, yeah. Which is insane. What Lies Beneath, the Robert Zemeckis, Harrison Ford, Michelle Pfeiffer, like early 2000s horror movie, PG-13 horror movie, but...
When was the last time you saw it?
Probably the theater. Is it bad?
Dude, it might suck, but should we maybe do it on the show?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
What are we here for if not to cover What Lies Beneath on 4K? There's a Blaxploitation Classics box set from Shout Factory that includes Coffee and Across 110th Street.
There's a lot in here. I didn't know this was coming, and when I saw this announcement, I got excited for this.
It's pretty steep, pretty expensive. I don't love the artwork. Otherwise, yes.
6 4Ks, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that appear to be like individually packed, which is cool, inside of a box set.
The outlying box set is maybe the worst artwork of all time.
I just got Umbrella's version of Coffee on Blu-ray, and I'm so pissed.
Don't even open it. Just fucking sell it right now.
This is why I made my New Year's resolution to stop buying things like that, because this happens.
Were you going to bring up Fade to Black?
No.
Fade to Black is a really cool horror movie that I got from Vinegar Syndrome a million years ago when I was on one of the mailing lists.
This is Scream Factory?
Yeah, they announced that they're putting out the 4K of it.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I recognize that poster.
A shy and lonely film buff embarks on a killing spree against those who browbeat and betray him, all while stalking his idol, a Marilyn Monroe lookalike.
Sign me up.
I really liked it a lot. Watched it one Halloween. It was great.
Kino's got some fun ones. They're doing a Blu-ray of Bottoms, which is cool. That didn't get a physical release. Great comedy from last year? 2 years ago?
2 years ago, I believe. You're going to be mad because I think you bought the Blu-ray of it, but they announced a 4K of Prophecy, which is a John Frankenheimer.
John Frankenheimer?
Yeah, dude. Your best friend from Reindeer Games.
Hell yeah, buddy.
He made this crazy-ass monster movie in the 80s called Prophecy.
I bought and sold this Blu-ray without opening it because they announced this a while ago.
Oh, it just got dated?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Can't wait.
Actually, on the Kino note too, let's just point out, we will do it on the show, but Dante's Peak has been delayed.
Yeah, that comes out in late May, I believe.
All those Pierce Brosnan heads out there are going to have to wait.
At least Daylight's coming out on time.
Hey, baby, here we are.
Okay, Sam, you and I are about to hop off the mics and watch David Fincher's 2002 thriller Panic Room. This movie has languished on DVD since I think 2002, when it was released in a special edition 3-disc DVD that was legendary, jam-packed with special features, as many Fincher films are.
Another kind of paper case that slid in and out, yes?
Yes, fit right alongside Seven, Fight Club, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I believe this was my first wish of physical therapy ever. I have wanted this to come out on Blu-ray and then crossed my fingers for a 4K, but kind of never thought it would happen.
So having said all of that, when was the last time you saw this?
Probably within the last 10 years.
It was
I must have
streaming
streamed it
on something. Yeah. Because I've definitely seen it since originally seeing it on DVD.
And they announced that it would be coming, I think, to Blu-ray a couple years ago. That was floating around.
Mm-hmm.
And it just wouldn't surface. It just, no, new information was coming out about details or anything. And then finally, they announced a 4K, Steelbook only, 3 discs, 1 4K and 2 Blu-rays. And we're going to watch that 4K transfer right now. I am so excited. And I did watch a lot of the special features to prepare for this episode.
Okay.
But I've not yet watched the movie. Sam, I know this is not your favorite movie, and I appreciate you being here.
I'm here for the listeners. This is my one for them.
You did not buy this 4K. You are watching the digital download that came with mine.
It is not my favorite movie, and with it being a Steelbook only, the price point was fairly high, and I didn't really want to spend the money. And Kurt was like, you know what, that's fine. I'll just send you the digital download. And there was a moment where I kind of felt like a panicked parent. And I was like, I don't know how to download a movie from a digital download. I've honestly never, ever used a digital download from a Blu-ray or DVD or 4K. But pretty easily, I downloaded this movie and I'm about to stream it, I guess.
You're up and running.
There's a first time for everything, folks. Although the minute I was starting to download this movie, I was like, I should have just fucking bought this.
Well, I'm sure I'll be lecturing you about that in about 2 hours' time, Sam. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's hit it.
All right, we will be back after watching Panic Room. We will see you guys in the future. Okay, Sam.
Oh, man.
We're back.
Here we are, dude.
We're going to recap this movie and talk about this release, talk about the special features that I was able to check out. I'll tell you right now, there are so many. I spent hours with this disc and feel like I haven't even scratched the surface, to be honest.
Are a lot of them new?
No.
Are they legacy or what?
So much so are they not new that they would drive you crazy because they're in standard def and they don't even fill the screen on my HD TV. It's truly just, I think, a 1-to-1 kind of copy of that DVD, the special features.
Oh, wow.
Which is annoying, but also I don't know what they could have really done other than, produce new things, but I don't think that was ever going to happen. It's sort of annoying that they can't just blow up the file to fill the screen. I don't get why that has to be the case. It's like not hard to just re-export a file as a new, version that would be more modern or fill the screen at least. It wouldn't address the quality issues, but it would make it less annoying.
Yeah, I guess if like a lot of those special features from the DVD were pretty informative and like speaking to a certain audience, they're not necessarily going to go back and make that small documentary again.
Yeah, and I love that they're on there. I think it was so fun to revisit these. It was such a nostalgic feeling to go back to this disc. I was obsessed with it at the time it came out, and not only are there, I think, 3 commentary tracks, but the discs are sort of separated into the chronology of the production. So it walks you through the pre-pro. There's an hour-long BTS documentary about the shooting of the film, and then all sorts of supplements about visual effects and sound, and we'll talk about them a little bit as we go.
Okay, so before we get into any of this, you and I have been friends for a very long time. We've had many a conversation about this movie. But I don't ever think I've asked you, like, did you see this in theaters? Where does your absolute love for this movie start?
I saw this in the theater. I, at this point, would have been a fan of Fight Club and Seven.
Do you think this was your, first film theater going experience that you knew you were watching a David Fincher movie?
Definitely. First movie of his I would have seen in the theater for sure. My profession is directing. I make videos for the internet and I'm starting to do commercials, and I've been obsessed with filmmaking my whole life. And Panic Room is one of the most important kind of milestones as a young person discovering movies, because I really think it was the first one that lit the light bulb of cinematography. I remember seeing this and immediately it ended and I was like begging my parents to get a digital camera. Like I had never thought of that before, but I was like, oh my God, I need to get a camera. I need to start playing with this stuff, because the cinematography in this movie, it can be showy. There are some like showy shots. We'll talk about one, but
there are some showy shots.
It's not all showy. And I think that the cinematography is incredible in this movie. And when I say that these days, I'm not really referring to cameras going into keyholes or cameras going. Yeah. It just was visually so striking. And I don't think anything had ever really looked like this before.
Sure.
One of the things that makes Panic Room special is they pre-vised, which is a term for basically storyboarding, but in an animated sort of way. So they're storyboards, but they're in a computer and animations of what a shot is going to look like. And it's something that's certainly evolved a lot since Panic Room. But on this Blu-ray, you get to watch a lot of these pre-vis shots and things. But anyways, they did it for the whole movie, which is kind of unheard of. It's something you usually do for complicated sequences or something that's going to involve a lot of VFX, but it allows a filmmaking team to like map out precisely what shots are going to look like ahead of time and spatially where cameras are going to be able to fit, things like that. But they did the entire movie ahead of time for Panic Room. So in a lot of ways, what they were doing was kind of paint by numbers when they shot it. It wasn't only that, they had two cameras going at all times, it seems. And it's sort of like one of them is the previs and one is a little more freestyle. Loosely, that's sort of the approach that they did with this. The result is a very, even for David Fincher, controlled and calculated visual, presentation of the story. And that I think just really spoke to me as a young person. And so when I think back on Panic Room, I just remember seeing it in the theater and immediately just having like an obsession with cameras after that.
Cool. All right, well, let's fucking get into it.
Let's fucking get into it.
Let's do it. Let me take it from the top here. This movie starts off with Jodie Foster in maybe the worst sunglasses of the 2000s, walking down a busy New York street in Manhattan with her real estate agent.
And her daughter.
Played by the lovely Kristen Stewart,
who I think is maybe 11.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe 13. They are walking down the street. Kristen Stewart is like razor scootering behind them. Mm-hmm. And the real estate agent is explaining this incredible property that has just come on, not even the market. It has just popped up in the real estate world. And if she wants to get this place, she has to make an offer on it now. As the man that they're meeting at the house to show it explains to them, it is a combination of a brownstone and a townhouse. It is 4 stories. You enter in on the second story, and within 5 minutes they do an incredible job mapping out the house so that the viewer and Jodie Foster and Kristen Stewart know the entire layout of it.
And let me tell you, this house is fucking awesome.
Maybe the most amazing architectural achievement I've seen in my life.
It's gorgeous, white wall kind of crown molding with like super dark hardwood floors, the whole thing. And yeah, huge staircase that goes up the center of it. I guess 3 stories tall from the floor you enter on.
Yeah. Also just like an amazing way to introduce the house as a character and for us as the viewers to get our bearings.
And you get a sense right away that, it's very labyrinthian, like rooms connect to other rooms, not just through the hallway and stuff. So it seems like a place you could easily get lost and a place you could easily find multiple ways of running away from danger. Spoiler alert. We learn from this real estate agent that the property had formerly belonged to a financier named Sidney Pearlstein, I believe. He's just died, and they make reference to the fact that his family is in dispute and suing each other over the inheritance, and they mention that some of his money is apparently missing, unaccounted for. So there's turmoil in this family, that previously owned this house.
Jodie Foster's real estate agent highlights that it hits everything that she's looking for, and if she wants to make an offer on the house, she has to make it now, because the minute that this actually hits the market, offers are going to be flooding in.
It's a very unique place. It also has a elevator.
Yes. The financier that Kurt was just talking about towards the end of his life was disabled. So there is a elevator that is like an old school with the metal grate that you get to slam.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a more cinematic thing than slamming an iron grate of an elevator?
Dude, we'll get there, but the elevator sequence in this movie is so goddamn good.
Yes.
They're touring the master bedroom. In the corner of this room is a big floor-to-ceiling wide mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And the real estate agent approaches it, kind of pushes it in.
Before he does that, Jodie Foster says, wait a minute, there's something strange about this room. Is it slightly smaller than it should be?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I'm so impressed that you got this.
Mm-hmm.
No one, even at our office, was able to figure it out. And then he presses this mirror in, and a massive secret door opens into a... Marty?
Panic room. This panic room is, of course, a room designed to lock yourself in the event of a break-in or danger of some kind. It's basically a bomb shelter on the 4th floor of this Manhattan townhouse that's walled with thick, impenetrable steel. It has crates of supplies in it, a wall of sort of CRT TV monitors that are hooked up to security cameras all over the house.
There is a phone in there, but it is on a separate phone line than the rest of the house.
The door to get in here is behind the mirror. That sort of swings open and it's just a sort of disguise. But the actual panic room door slides open, retracts sort of into the wall. And when it's open, there are multiple horizontal green laser beams that cross over the doorway, which are essentially motion detectors to prevent the door from ever crushing you.
When this door seals, it slams shut.
Mm-hmm. You get the sense that Jodie Foster's uncomfortable by the idea of this room and maybe would rather it wasn't there at all. They buy the house. Jodie Foster's character, we should say, is recently divorced.
Not even.
Or in the process,
recently separated. Yeah.
Their first night in the house, she and Kristen Stewart order pizzas and they're having dinner in the kitchen together. And there's kind of a long silence where Jodie Foster is staring down at the table, looking upset. There's a great little bit of exposition, economic exposition from Kristen Stewart where she just says, fuck him. And then fuck her too.
Yeah.
And so now we get the entire backstory of the ex-husband or the soon-to-be ex-husband.
I think the other thing in this scene is that we see that Kristen Stewart has a watch on that is beeping.
Mm-hmm.
That beeps twice.
Her mom is sort of policing the amount of Coca-Cola she can drink.
Yeah. So her watch beeps and we realize that she is diabetic.
Yeah, which is made very clear when Jodie Foster sort of puts her to bed, takes her to her new room and says goodnight. And there's a refrigerator next to her bed, Kristen Stewart's bed, that is revealed to have water and juice, and then some insulin shots are inside of it.
Let's point out that Kristen Stewart's room is on the 4th floor and Jodie Foster and the panic room are on the 3rd floor.
Right.
So she puts her to bed, and then Jodie Foster goes downstairs to take a bath and get fucking tanked.
Red wine tanked.
She's hitting the wine, dude. There are plenty of shots in this movie that kind of bug the piss out of me.
Tell that to 10-year-old Marty, dude. He'd kick you right in the nuts right now, Grind.
There's an incredible shot of the camera basically at floor level, shooting through a dirty wine glass that has wine residue in it.
Yeah.
Up towards the bed that Jodie Foster's arm is just hanging off of. Mm-hmm. And it is a beautiful shot that conveys all the information that you need to know. This is a person who is drunk and passed out.
before she passes out, two important things happen. She finds an outlet behind the bed and sets up her phone charger, like an old school Nokia cell phone, to be charging next to her bed. She also drunkenly is reading the manual for the home security system and basically arms the house, right?
Yeah, she turns on all the TVs in the panic room.
Yep.
She's trying to turn off certain commands and basically turns everything on and says, I have to deal with this in the morning.
Similar to Sam trying to get his digital download to work. On this Blu-ray, on the production of this movie, they refer to the next thing that happens as, quote, the big shot. I think now is a good time to reveal one of the things that's so fascinating about this movie from a filmmaking standpoint, and one of the things that you get such insight on in the supplemental features of this release is, do you know this, Sam?
I don't think so.
So this movie takes place on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. They filmed the opening scene where they're walking down the street and things like that Sam described on location. But the entire house, the 4 stories, its backyard and the street in front of it, and like the houses, the townhouses that are on both the front and the back, were all built on a stage in Manhattan Beach in LA.
Okay, I had one of my notes just says, is this a real house, question mark?
Not a real house.
Wild.
They brought in, I think, like 150 tons or something of steel. Like, they built this huge structure. Not to mention that it's raining this entire movie. So they're raining down on this thing in a soundstage. But it ties into this idea of the previs. Like, they knew exactly how they were going to make this movie shot by shot ahead of time. And because it's this set, they can bring technocranes like high up on second, third stories, whatever. And they were in there for, I think, like 140 days shooting this.
Yeah. I mean, it's Fincher. That's not that surprising,
right.
But also, oh my God.
But Fincher doing a chamber piece thriller that is, you know, his most controlled movie. I just fucking can't get enough of it. But this shot, right? We see, I don't remember what the first frame is. It's her in bed, essentially. Maybe it's kind of over her.
Yeah, it's a pretty straight on shot of her in bed.
Camera backs out of the room through banisters on the railing and then sort of tilts 180 like to look down, or 90 degrees to look straight down. The camera travels down all 3 stories of the house now because she's on the 3rd floor, moves into the living room where there's sort of moving boxes are still around, things like that. It's pouring rain outside, and the camera goes up and kind of lands and hovers on the front windows where we see 2 figures outside in the rain. They walk up. You see them walking toward the front door. The camera travels over to the front door, goes inside of the keyhole. You see a key come in, jiggle, and clearly it's the wrong key or the locks have been changed. Camera backs out, turns all the way around, travels through the living room into the kitchen, like goes through the handle of a coffee pot, travels like underneath, like, you know, the island, like the kitchen island and the cabinets and stuff, places that like a camera can't really go. So they're filling things in with CGI. It definitely looks that way today.
Does it?
They had to replace a lot of stuff with CGI because that was how they were dealing with a lot of the camera bumps and things like that.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so it goes over to the back window where we see one of these guys who was trying to get in the front is trying to now get in the back. He can't get in the back. He starts climbing up a ladder outside. Camera's like booming up through the floor to get to multiple stories of the house where we're following this guy. You know, we're inside, he's outside. Ultimately, he goes up to the roof and is like looking down the skylight. And then the camera finds a closet space where it's revealed that there is a hatch basically that goes up to the roof, and you see this sort of metal, you know, jimmy kind of thing come through and unlock this hatch. And it's probably like a 3-minute shot. It's 5 different camera takes that are stitched together, but you know, that when you're 11 years old and it looked, I think it looks pretty good now, to be honest, but in 2002, it looked insane. And talk about like establishing the geography of the house.
Yeah.
You get a great sense of it when they're getting the tour, but this is like a real time walkthrough, you know, as the viewer. So it serves that purpose a lot.
Without a doubt. There is a lot of this that I liked.
Are we talking about this movie or this shot?
This shot.
Okay.
Because I think you're right that it does help establish the house and really to show you where Jodie Foster is relative to the three dudes that are breaking into the house.
And the images of them in the rain and the windows and stuff is so amazing.
I love that when we first get downstairs with the camera, you see two of them start to communicate outside, but we don't know what they're saying with one another. It's just like a really well executed thing. And I will be honest with you. I liked this movie way more than I ever have. This fucking digital camera work bullshit, I did not like.
Do you like it in Fight Club? He does this shit in Fight Club.
Okay. Honestly, I have not seen Fight Club in 20 years. I don't remember it as much in Fight Club. This was a thing that I remembered from this movie. Mm-hmm. I find it to be a bit silly.
Do you think you would have felt that way in 2002?
No. I probably saw this movie for the first time in 2004, and I don't remember feeling this way about the camera work, but I just think bits of it are silly, dude.
It's showy. It's arguably distracting.
The real shots of, Forrest Whitaker walking outside and seeing him outside, there are really cool things in this scene. I just think that it's I don't think I care enough about the way that it's shot for me to go, oh, I find this as a really interesting thing to watch right now.
Forrest Whitaker, you mentioned, is one of these guys breaking in. He is the guy who goes up to the roof. The other...
Oh, man. The other.
He's got to be in his 20s.
I was going to say 28.
A cornrowed, braided-haired Jared Leto.
Yeah.
Plays... What's his name? Junior. He's real hit and miss with me, but yeah, I love him in this. I always have. And this movie is the reason that I feel like I always am ready to defend Jared Leto. I just have such a soft spot for him in this. He's such a clown in this movie. He's so funny. Clown. So Forrest Whitaker breaks through the ceiling, comes down, lets Jared Leto in the front door. Through the front door comes a third assailant that Forrest Whitaker is not expecting. So it's clear that there's been an established plan between Jared Leto, Forrest Whitaker, and that it was supposed to just be the two of them. But Jared Leto has brought another guy named Raul, played by the musician Dwight Yoakam, who fucking rules in this. And they walk in and they see all these moving boxes. They see this empty pizza box and they're freaking out because nobody is...
No. Sorry. That is correct. But as Forrest Whitaker is on his way down from the roof, he has seen that there are two people asleep in this house.
Yes.
And so when he gets down to the bottom and lets the other guys in, he's like, we have a massive problem here.
Yep. I believe Forrest Whitaker says, what if they have a gun? And Raul opens his jacket to reveal that he has a silenced pistol with him. You get a sense right here that Forrest Whitaker is out of his element. This was not the plan for a third person to be here. It was not a plan for the occupants of the house to be here. And he immediately wants out. Jared Leto's trying to talk him out of that, trying to convince him that Raul's okay. This is all cross-cut with drunk sleep Jodie upstairs. She wakes up to go to the bathroom, walks into the bathroom, turns the light on, realizes that she's not in the bathroom. She's in the panic room. She's blinded by the light in this panic room, which we should say is very fluorescent and bright and sort of steely blue.
That awful daylight light.
The rest of the house is very soft and warm lighting, which is cool, a great contrast. And the panic room itself on 4K is stunning. The HDR in those scenes looks so good, just pops off the screen.
I mean, that's one of the things with the beginning of this movie that I like. It's so muddy and I think intentionally, but it's ugly to look at. It's really soft. It's the focus is really soft. The colors are really muted. It's just there's nothing that I find it. I'm oh yeah, I really want to look at that image again.
Interesting. I love the way the whole thing looks. It looks very good on 4K, I will say. It is softer and sort of not very bright, but definitely by design, obviously. And again, that contrast is really cool. But the rest of it, I'd be curious how you'd feel about it if you saw the disc versus a digital download. I'm not sure. But she goes to the real bathroom and there's this tension building, obviously, of she doesn't know they're there. They know she's there. What are they going to do? Jared Leto's stopping them from leaving. And she goes back to bed, realizes the panic room light's on, gets up, walks over. Now she sees the monitors. And on the monitors, in many angles are these three goons downstairs, way downstairs. So that's one of the fun things about it is the house is so big that they can get away with a lot of sound, not having to be like, oh, they're talking over here. She'd of course hear that. She wouldn't hear it because she's 3 stories above them. While she's watching them, they accidentally kick a basketball. So she hears this basketball fall and sees it happening simultaneously on the monitors. Therefore, she knows that this is happening in real time. These guys are in her house. And so, of course, her first instinct is to run and grab her daughter.
She bolts out of the room upstairs. And not only are the 3 of them already walking up the stairs, but when they hear her feet start to slam, they start running up the staircase towards her.
Kristen Stewart is sound asleep to the point where she can't even be shaken awake.
Yeah.
So Jodie Foster throws water in her face, which brings her out. I think she says what'd you do that for? And Jodie Foster just says people in the house. And they run together. The geography of this I may not get exactly right, but basically they run immediately into Jared Leto, who's coming at them, right? So they get into this rickety old school elevator and head down.
Yes.
Because they're on the 4th floor at this point. And they get in the elevator, they slam the door, they're kind of panicking, or Jodie Foster's kind of panicking at least. And Kristen Stewart has the idea where she goes, Mom, that room. And Jodie Foster's like, what? And she says, the panic room.
There's also a really good moment in the elevator when it's traveling down. So everybody starts running downstairs to catch them at their destination. Jodie Foster hears about the panic room and wants to make it go up. And she doesn't know the command to make it go up. And Kristen Stewart explains it to her. And it's just a moment where Kristen Stewart is kind of an unsung hero of this movie. Mm-hmm. There's a great mother-daughter balance between the 2 of them.
The staging of this is incredible because the elevator has a little window. And as it goes across, up and down over floor by floor, you can see them looking out, and Jared Leto is chasing them down, the stairs and banging on the window and seeing them go. And you're getting those great angles where Jodie Foster and Kristen Stewart are lowering out of frame, and it's cutting to Jared Leto rising up out of frame.
Yeah.
Looking all, furious at them.
The panic room's on the 3rd floor because it's off of Jodie Foster's room. They get the elevator to go up and rip the door open and sprint dead to the panic room. Because the house is laid out so crazily, you're watching Jodie Foster and Kristen Stewart run towards the panic room while you see Jared Leto and Forest Whitaker through doorway. They're coming towards them through doors that are being shut or they're blocked by boxes. It's a really cool tension building moment.
They're trying to keep up with them, but the layout of the house, it's hard to know kind of how they're getting from A to B.
Yeah.
From the perspective of these burglars. Howard Shore did the music for this movie, and at this point it's just swelling strings, and it's just an incredible chase scene. And they make it to the panic room, get inside, they clear out these blankets and pillows and stuff that they had. What were they doing? Were they blocking the door? Why were they?
I think she was using it more as a storage area for the sense. Maybe it was blocking the door.
Yeah. There's stuff in the way, basically. They get it out of the way. Just as the bad guys are closing in, they slam the button to shut the door.
It's so good.
And there's a few of these moments. Is it Jared Leto that gets to the door first?
Uh-huh.
He runs in and just at the last second, it shuts in his face. And now they're in the panic room.
Yeah.
And then Forest Whitaker comes in the room. And I think it's Jared Leto and Dwight Yoakam are in there by themselves.
Yeah.
And Forest Whitaker comes in and sees that the 2 of them are sort of at a loss. And he just says, tell me they did not go in that room.
I think that scene, which doesn't use a lot of the stupid over-the-top digital camera stuff, is one of the greatest, most thrilling. I've seen this movie and I was on the edge of my seat the entire time in that scene. My heart's pounding.
We'll get there, but I think they top it later.
Yes. That scene in particular, I was like, oh, this is why David Fincher is just a master. This is such a perfectly crafted, so well executed, thrilling, awesome scene. Because even though you might not understand some of the doors that open on other hallways and everything in this house, because of the way that it's edited and cut and shot, you always see where other characters are relative to everybody else.
At this point, time passes. I think we get an actual fade out, and it comes back up. And I believe the bad guys are sort of setting out tools to see what they have to work with that might get them in this room.
They also bolt all the exit doors to the outside world.
Has it been established at this point that Forrest Whitaker built these rooms?
Okay, so I had a question about that. This motherfucker's going to rob a house and he's wearing his work uniform and jacket?
Okay, at some point early on, I can't remember exactly where now, but it's established that Forrest Whitaker's profession is building these rooms. And when they realize that they're locked out, he literally says, I've spent the last 12 years of my life making sure that people like us can't get in that room. And I really like the detail of his work uniform with his actual fucking name on it, because it just goes to show you, A, like how inexperienced at doing something like this he is, but B, how sincerely surprised, he is that they are home and that he finds himself in a situation such as this.
Yeah.
Because I think he was reluctantly talked into it by Jared Leto. He's a good guy. That's what's another thing that's so great about Panic Room is the casting of Forrest Whitaker and the character himself is so sympathetic. One of your main villains, in a way that he's not even a villain. He's just an antagonist in terms of what he wants versus what the protagonists want. But he is really gentle in it.
Did we highlight that he says early on, I told you I don't hurt people? That's like a line spoken pretty loudly.
I think it's when Dwight Yoakam reveals the gun, right?
Yeah, to get a point across, which is like he is this kind of, and I get what you're saying. I get it is character building. I made a note of it because I was like, man, why are you wearing your work jacket?
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
Yeah,
it's a heightened choice certainly, but it just paints him in such a nice broad stroke.
Yeah,
we learn at one point that the only reason he's there in the first place is to get money to like fight for the custody of his kids, right? Forrest Whitaker.
Yes.
There's a PA system in the Panic Room that they use at this point. And Jodie Foster, encouraged by her daughter, talks to these guys, turns on the PA system and says, I'm calling the cops. And I think they know that she never hooked up the phone, right?
Yeah, because it would have had to be done through Forrest Whitaker's company.
Exactly. And he's got the records to prove that it hasn't happened yet. They're kind of like, all right, you got nothing on us. There's no way you're calling the cops.
He walks over to one of the cameras and like mimes that.
No phone.
She goes, get out of my house. And then Kristen Stewart goes, use the F word. So she goes, fuck. And then she goes, Mom, get out of my fucking house.
Now, here's another just like, God, this movie rocks. They're looking at them, the villains, over the security cameras and all these monitors in the Panic Room. And Forrest Whitaker's like, give me a pen. They grab pieces of paper, the bad guys, and start writing on them. And then you're seeing the screens from the POV of Jodie Foster. And they hold the first one up because they can't communicate back. It's not an intercom. It's a PA. So they can only talk out of the Panic Room. They can't hear anything. So they hold up these signs. The first one says, what we want. And you don't know this yet as an audience member too. So it's like chills. What we want. And then they put it down and he brings up the next one or writes the next one or whatever and holds it up and it says, is in that room.
Yeah.
So the whole reason they're there is to get in the room. And the only thing that Jodie Foster and Kristen Stewart have on these guys is that they are protected by this room. So now we got a movie. And then Jodie Foster gets on the PA and she says, what do you know about this room? And they write, more than you.
More than you. Yeah.
Jodie Foster and Kristen Stewart are like looking through the supply crates to see if they've got anything in there. One thing you see when they open these is a fire blanket. Dwight Yoakam gets the bright idea to take a sledgehammer from this pile of tools that they brought in, and he starts breaking the ceiling underneath the Panic Room. And Forrest Whitaker comes in and he's like, man, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And he's like, we're coming in from underneath.
This is a great scene.
Obviously, Forrest Whitaker informs him that there's however many inches of steel that they're never going to be able to get through.
But they don't stop.
No, he doesn't. Yeah, Dwight Yoakam's just like an asshole who's not listening. Forrest Whitaker looks out onto the patio through the window into the rain, and what catches his eye? A propane tank that's attached to a grill. Dwight Yoakam realizes that he's just banging against metal. They all go upstairs into the bedroom outside of the Panic Room with this propane tank. Forrest Whitaker has a drill.
He bashes in the wall.
Right against the Panic Room, right next to the door.
Right against the Panic Room, yeah. So he exposes the air supply. So he drills into it and hooks a garden hose up to a propane tank, tapes it off on the air intake of the Panic Room, and then tapes it off to the propane tank and opens it. So through this digital camera stuff, our camera travels through a vent.
And it goes into the hose.
Yeah.
And you follow the gas. So they're flooding slowly because Forrest Whitaker's in charge of this operation at this point. And he's not after injuring them whatsoever. He's trying to send them a message. And they're flooding this panic room with gas.
He also cleverly points out if they die or pass out in the panic room, there's absolutely no chance we're getting in. They have to convince them to come out.
Yes. And Dwight Yoakam and Jared Leto are much more aggressive with this plan. They want to crank this gas up to really send a message. Forrest Whitaker is against that. So they're arguing, sparring over this. Eventually, Dwight Yoakam sort of takes over, right? And just like cranks this gas.
Pulls his gun. Yeah.
At this point, from Jodie Foster's perspective, she's sort of climbed up and smelled into this vent because she can, she gets the sense that there's something wrong and takes like a whiff and like gets literally knocked on her ass from how strong this gas is coming in.
Yeah.
So Kristen Stewart finds behind something in the panic room that there's a tiny little pipe opening that goes to the outside.
There's like a duct that's loose in the panic room and she rips it off. And there's a tiny pipe that has like a air flow intake.
And so they're both mother and daughter like face to face with their mouths on this tiny little pipe hole, gasping for, fresh oxygen.
Jodie Foster grabs a lighter, throws a fire blanket on Kristen Stewart, wraps one around herself. She's like, do not look up.
Visually, the ceiling is just crawling with gas, fumes.
And she shoves her hand like pretty far into this vent, like comically far.
Yeah, she gets it like in and down, like kind of pointing down into the zone that Forrest Whitaker had drilled through. This movie is so funny too. Jared Leto, I was laughing out loud at this. She starts clicking this lighter, trying to get this stick lighter to ignite. And you can hear the from inside the bedroom. And Jared Leto just cuts him and he goes, what is that? Yeah. And walks over to the wall and like puts his ear against the wall and just looking like an absolute dope. And he's sort of like listening to it and you're hearing like tick, tick, and then he like switches and uses his other ear to get a better listen.
It's cutting between Jodie Foster trying to light it, Jared Leto putting his dumb ear up to the wall, and Forrest Whitaker backing up and being like, turn the gas off.
Yeah, turn the gas off.
Turn the gas off.
This tension here is so good. That little recipe right there that you just said is just like, it's so fun.
Yeah. Yes.
She lights this thing and blue fire just explodes out of the wall all over Jared Leto, lights him on fire. The ceiling of the panic room is just like dancing with flames. Jodie Foster like dives down on top of Kristen Stewart.
Both under fire blankets at that point. The propane tank, it's like an implosion at that point. The propane tank catches fire and like shoots around the entire brownstone.
Forrest Whitaker puts out Jared Leto, whose arm is just fully on fire.
Part of his ear and neck are like very burned, and he is pissed.
From here, there's a little bit of a sequence where they're trying to do SOS with a flashlight. Kristen Stewart is sort of leading this charge through this pipe that we talked about that leads to the outside. You can see like a straight shot if you look through this pipe at a neighbor's bedroom window, and you can see a guy asleep. I believe, Sam, that the guy asleep is Andrew Kevin Walker, who wrote Seven.
Oh, really?
I believe so.
You think he was passed out after writing 8mm?
Man, Umbrella did a Blu-ray of that. Where's that 4K already?
Oh, shit, man.
It doesn't really go anywhere. It's like a nice build of suspense, and then this guy just shuts his window. You think he's going to help him, but he shuts his windows to get the light out of his face so he can go back to sleep. There's a bit of kind of a revelation here. Jared Leto Jr. is in fact the grandson of Pearlstein, who was the previous owner. So he is one of these family members that we have learned from the beginning of the movie that is in dispute with his siblings or whoever else over the inheritance. And he knows this missing money is in the panic room. We learn that it's $3 million and that they are, I guess, splitting it 3 ways, which seems confusing.
No, because Raoul / Dwight Yoakam says $100,000 isn't enough for this anymore. I want a third of this.
Yep, exactly. So they've renegotiated.
Yeah. But then...
Oh, God. When they're having that conversation, They're downstairs, first floor. This is to me what beats that first chase. Jodie Foster remembers that she has a cell phone and that it's plugged in the bedroom next to her bed. We saw her do that earlier, right?
Yeah.
So while they're down there, she's going to make a run for it and get the phone. This sequence is entirely in slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
The first 80% of it is just sort of sound design. There isn't music. It's just sort of these droning noises.
It's so good, dude.
They open the panic room door, which, like, again, this is all slow-mo. Jodie Foster is running already into the bedroom. You're cutting down to the guys arguing. The three guys are like screaming at each other about what to do and how to handle this situation and over money. But you can't hear any of it. It's just like slow motion of like Forrest Whitaker screaming and whatever. You know, there's a lot of low angles, at least on him, where you can see like up the stairs and at least like the next kind of landing up. They must be on the second floor at this point because you can see up to the third floor behind him. Cut back to Jodie Foster. She's running to the bed. The room's all destroyed at this point because propane tank flew all over the place and etc. They've turned the room upside down. But she reaches to where the phone is supposed to be, can't find it.
Yeah, she's reaching like behind a mattress to her nightstand where the phone should be, which the mattress has knocked over.
Yep. And like right as she is about to grab the phone, which is of course just too far for her to reach under the bed, a lamp starts to fall, hits the ground, and the bulb flashes as it dies. And like mid-flash, it cuts back to Forrest Whitaker in slow motion silent screen.
Oh
and you
my
see
God.
like the whole hallway from the bedroom light up behind him.
Just for a flash.
And they all turn toward this flash. And then it like cuts back. She grabs the phone.
But she fumbles it. It is one of the most maddening scenes because it's so realistic, but also just like being like, God, just pick up the phone. Just pick it up. And she can't grab it. And then she finally grabs it and it cuts back to them turning and starting to run up the stairs.
Yeah, she's booking it back across the bedroom. And now the score, I think, has started.
Yeah.
And it's just this like swelling strings again. They're running into the room just as she's getting back in there and, you know, gets back in just in time, right?
Yeah. Again, it's like a door slamming in somebody's face. At this point, Jared Leto has had enough. He just says like, I'm leaving. We're out of here.
Yeah. And as he says this, he's like talking about reconstructive surgery because of the burns that he's gone through. And he says something along the lines of like, even after I, replace my hair or whatever he has to do, he's like, I'll still clear $900,000 or something. And Forrest Whitaker then sort of does quick math and he's like, wait a second, you're going to clear $900,000 after you get surgery, after inheritance tax, and you're splitting this money with at least like 7 other people that I already know about in your family. There's more than $3 million in that room.
Yeah.
He like calls him out on that.
He says it's 12, right?
I think so, yeah. He ups it a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, there is no cell phone service in the panic room. And the phone in the panic room, the landline does not work, as we said, because it has not been hooked up. But Forrest Whitaker has a realization where he says to Dwight Yoakam, when I told you to cut the phone lines, did you cut the main line in the basement or did you just cut the phone cords in the kitchen? And I don't know if he responds or you just
He doesn't.
realize.
That's the best thing about it. There's no response. It's not Dwight Yoakam. He says it to Jared Leto. And then he starts sprinting downstairs.
Another incredible visual happens first.
Yes.
Forrest Whitaker goes to the wall just outside the panic room, moves a cabinet out of the way, and sees a phone jack, like an empty plug in the wall for a phone line. And he's relieved. Meanwhile, Jodie Foster is ripping through kind of near the duct. She's into the wall and seeing like the cables that are coming in here into the panic room. There is one labeled like phone line.
Mm-hmm.
And they realize, her and Kristen Stewart, that they can basically hotwire the phone from in the panic room that has no service to the landline, for the main house's phone and call out. So she's trying to get a hold of this wire. And as Forrest Whitaker's looking at this jack and that there's nothing plugged into it and that he can still see the wire kind of where it, meets this plug.
It's literally like a cartoon level like sigh.
Yeah.
When they get the cover off the wall
and it's still
and
there.
They see the cord. It's literally like,
and then cut to Jodie Foster ripping this wire out of the wall. Cut to the plug from Forrest Whitaker's point of view. It gets sucked into the wall toward the panic room, and they realize they're fucked if she can make a phone call. They know what she's doing. So now they're booking it to the basement. Forrest Whitaker is booking it to the basement to cut this main line. In the amount of time that it takes him to successfully do this, because it's dark down there, he's got to like go back up, get a light.
Yeah.
Jodie Foster makes 2 phone calls.
The first one is to the NYPD 911, to which she starts to explain what's going on, and it's an automated, we're transferring you.
They put her on hold.
Yeah.
And all she basically gets out is her address.
Yeah. Kristen Stewart says, like, call dad.
Yeah.
So she calls her ex-husband, or her soon-to-be ex-husband, and his new lady picks up, and she's like, who is this? It's early. And Jodie Foster's like, she's like, I need to speak to Stephen. And she's like, we've told you not to go. She's like, put her on the phone, bitch.
Yeah. Get her, Jodie.
He gets on the phone and she's like, Steven, we need your help. There's 3 of them. And then the line gets cut. It's cutting back to Forrest Whitaker and Dwight Yoakam. And Dwight Yoakam takes a sledgehammer and just destroys the entire wire system to the phone in the basement. Totally destroyed. Line goes flat, goes dead.
At this point, Jared Leto is leaving.
Yeah.
He's done.
He's like, I'm out.
He's walking out the door, and Dwight Yoakam takes out his silenced pistol and blows his brains out.
Shoots him through the eyeball.
Shoots him through the eyeball, and you see the back of his skull fly out.
Yeah.
And it's so gruesome. Falls down dead.
Forrest Whitaker is like, mesmerized.
And terrified.
Tries to bolt.
Yeah. And basically is like Raoul's captive at this point.
Yeah.
Also, Jodie Foster sees this happen on the monitor and is shielding Kristen Stewart from seeing this violence.
At this point, Kristen Stewart's health is going downhill like pretty quickly.
Yes, she has chills.
She's like, Mom, I'm dizzy.
Pretty much immediately after Jared Leto is dragged out of the doorway.
It's really good because the camera keeps cutting between like behind Forrest Whitaker, who's staring at Dwight Yoakam, and the empty doorway is lit. The camera pans down so they can move a dead body. And when it pans back up, there's somebody in what was once the empty doorway.
In the house, which is, of course, Steven, her ex-husband.
He immediately gets the shit beat out of him.
Shit beat out of him. They grab his wallet, see his name is Altman, his last name, Stephen Altman. There's a great, in one shot, I think, like it pulls focus from his ID over to the moving boxes that says Altman, written in permanent marker, because that is, of course, Jodie Foster's name as well. So they realize he's her husband. Dwight has Forrest Whitaker at gunpoint at this point and is like, figure out another way in. You have to figure out another way in. They hold Steven's ID up to the security cameras and show Jodie Foster that they've got him, and then basically kick the shit out of him.
Yeah, like in front of the cameras, so she knows they mean business.
Of course, as this is happening, or just thereafter, Kristen Stewart starts having a seizure from diabetes. So Jodie Foster basically has no choice but to leave the panic room to retrieve the insulin that we've seen in the refrigerator next to Kristen Stewart's bed. At this point, Forrest Whitaker has covered the cameras, so she's basically blind to what's going on outside.
Yeah.
She opens the door. Her husband is lying on these sort of disheveled mattresses. He's got a coat over him, can't see his face.
She like stops for a second and says, Steven. He doesn't respond, but you can see that he's breathing. So she knows he's alive. She bolts upstairs to go grab the insulin. And again, it's this perfect cross-cutting. Forrest Whitaker is like downstairs with, because Dwight Yoakam and him got in a fight on the camera. They get in a giant argument. You hear gunshots go off. Dwight Yoakam's wearing this stupid mask. He's knocked out, draped over Forrest Whitaker's shoulder as he's walking down the stairs, and Jodie Foster's running up the other staircase. As she grabs the insulin out of the fridge, the body of Steven,
right outside the panic room,
rises up, and we realize it's actually Dwight Yoakam.
No mask.
No mask. And he is like bolting for the panic room. Well, Forrest Whitaker puts down this body and takes off the mask, and we realize it's Steven.
Yep.
And Jodie Foster starts to like run downstairs to get back to the panic room, although she doesn't know any of this has happened.
Forrest Whitaker gets back there. They go into the panic room, him and Dwight, and they see Kristen Stewart, who is literally having a seizure on the ground.
An incredible, like, she's in the bedroom that the panic room is off of. She realizes she's not going to get to the door in time and slides/throws the shot across the room, and it slides into the panic room. It's such a good...
As the bad guys are shutting themselves in there with her daughter.
Yep.
And when it shuts, she has an amazing maternal screaming like freak out that these guys are in there with her kid.
Yes.
Which is so good.
It's so good. And I am not the biggest Jodie Foster fan in the world, but she is, in that scene in particular, she is so incredible. And the best thing about it is that as this massive, massive, heavy steel door slams shut, idiot Dwight Yoakam's hand is in between the two laser sensors.
Yep.
So it shuts onto like the top part of his hand / his fingers. And he's howling like a complete moron. And then realizes he's dropped his gun outside of the panic room door. So now Jodie Foster...
Incredible bit, though. How does Jodie Foster realize that the gun is outside? Dwight Yoakam and Forrest Whitaker, I think Forrest Whitaker like pushes him against the wall for some reason. He's like restraining him, or they're arguing. And as Dwight Yoakam's back is hitting the wall, he's bumping the intercom. So there's this very fragmented sound coming through the PA system of the whole house where it's like, I left my gun outside. And so that's how Jodie Foster realizes the gun's in the bedroom, which she now has.
Yeah, so she grabs that. And again, Forrest Whitaker, who's kind of the like gentle giant character, says like, if you leave the gun on this floor and go downstairs, we'll give her the shot. And it's mainly so, you know, they can open the door and get Dwight Yoakam's hand out of it and then close it again. So Jodie Foster goes downstairs, doesn't leave the gun.
Yeah, she refuses to leave the gun because I think she knows at that point that they will have all the cards.
Yeah.
Forrest Whitaker asks Kristen Stewart, what'll happen if you don't get this shot? And she just says, coma, die.
Yeah.
Is like the next two steps that she's looking at after that seizure. So there's a great scene now where Kristen Stewart basically walks him through, as she's very, you know, faint and weak, how to give her this insulin shot, which he does. All the while, Dwight Yoakam's just like, let her die. Who cares? He's threatening to kill her every chance he can get. So Kristen Stewart's all right. And now, because Jodie Foster's downstairs, they're able to get Dwight's hand free. At this point, the doorbell rings. And there's two cops at the door. I think Dwight and Forrest like argue a little bit about whether or not she was the one that called the cops, and whether like Dwight Yoakam's like, she just killed her kid. Like, I'm going to kill this kid. She called the cops. I think Forrest Whitaker like knows the dad did it, or assumes. I don't really remember why. Right.
She asks Steven, who's like beat up and in a chair at this point, did you call the cops? And he says, of course I did. Your phone call scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And so two cops arrive at the door. And they pretty much say, like, over the intercom, get him to go away or your kid's dead. So she answers the door in kind of a hungover, drunken stupor.
She's acting like she was woken up out of bed at 3 a.m.
Yeah. Is like kind of going back and forth with these cops. Like, yes, I called my ex-husband. I was drunk.
I was trying to get him to sleep with me.
They're going back and forth. And one of the cops, who is the priest in The Sopranos, Father Phil, looks at her and says, like, ma'am, if there's something you want to say to us that you can't say right now, now is a perfect time to give us a signal.
Blink your eyes rapidly.
Yeah, rub your face, you know, like something.
And she thinks about it for a while. You
Yeah.
can tell that she's thinking about it, and they know she's thinking about it.
But she also kind of does.
Yeah, but she doesn't.
Yeah.
That's another beautiful thing about the staging of it. It's like she goes just up to the line, but doesn't cross it. And so it's a little ambiguous, but I think ultimately, like, she doesn't.
I agree with you, but I will say that, like, the watch through this time, she brushes her hair out of her face in a way around that time that I'm like, dog, that might be a signal.
It might have been, you know, who knows?
Yeah.
We'll get there. This scene is so great, too. It's so long and tense. And, like, you know, you have the tension of them watching over the security cameras, and just the way that they frame Father Phil from Sopranos, the cop. Who's so good in this. It's like he came on screen and I was like, oh my God, because I haven't seen this in so long, and now I have such a relationship with The Sopranos. What an actor. Just night and day, you know. He's great. Incredible scene. They go away. At this point, they're cracking the safe in the panic room.
And Jodie Foster is like getting ready.
She's getting ready. She's given Steven the pistol.
She's like basically like literally taped him to a chair with like a lamp underneath his arms because his arm's broken. So to prop him up, she's like taped the gun into his hand.
And she's running all over the house, knocking out every single light with a sledgehammer, opening every door, every cabinet door, breaking mirrors so there's glass all over the ground, just making a real obstacle course for these guys whenever they get out of this panic room.
While Forrest Whitaker is cracking this safe, there's this amazing point where he's like looking through a really long magnifying glass, and the camera, this is the only silly shot in the movie that I really loved.
It got you, did it?
It follows the magnifying glass down as we see the lock pieces literally lock into place. It's a really awesome, cool. I mean, you and I have talked about this a lot. We love heist movies and everything else. And so, you know, when it's something like this or Rafifi, like I love an intricate safe breaking.
Yeah, it's an amazing visualization of a lockpick. And this safe is obviously thick and legit. One of the special features on this 4K Blu-ray, it's probably 10 minutes long. Somewhere during pre-production, Fincher and some of the art team are in what will be the set of the panic room itself, the walls of which aren't even finished, and there's a safe on the ground, the safe, which isn't really done yet. It's just sort of, everything's kind of, you know, halfway there. And they're having a conversation with a professional safe cracker. This special feature is called Safe Cracking School, I think. And it's basically an unbroken 10 plus minute conversation between Fincher and his crew and this like very much a character guy explaining how he'd break into the safe. They're working with him on like what's realistic, what's not realistic, how they need to modify the safe, like the actual production design of it. But it's a really fascinating special feature just to like watch kind of how they got accuracy, but also how Fincher molds things to work for the movie, you know, and work as a movie. I appreciated this scene so much after that special feature. They break in, and what's inside, Sam?
22 million in bearer bonds. So they rejoice.
Dwight Yoakam's finally in a good mood.
Yeah. They make a deal with Jodie Foster to come out of the safe.
They get downstairs.
And there's Steven, gun aimed on them in a chair, saying, just like, we don't care what you do, just let my daughter go.
Yep.
Forrest Whitaker's like, it's cool, we're all good. And he's like screaming at Dwight Yoakam to let Kristen Stewart go.
And one thing that's established while they're in the panic room with her is that Kristen Stewart has seen Dwight Yoakam's face. I mean, she's seen Forrest Whitaker's face too, because he never had a mask on, but Dwight Yoakam is very preoccupied about that fact. You get the sense in there that like he's not going to let her go.
It goes into some of the slow-mo, as we've seen earlier in the movie, as Jodie Foster emerges from the elevator door with a sledgehammer. And Kristen Stewart looks over, locks eyes with her mom. She starts to duck as Dwight Yoakam turns, and he catches a motherfucking sledgehammer right to the face, falling over a railing and like dropping a floor.
Down to the first floor, which is submerged, basically. And this is a real sore spot of this movie for you, isn't it?
It really drives me crazy. Because, okay, here's the thing, dude. Like, Forrest Whitaker at this point has bolted. He is outside. He like has kicked open one of the doors, jumped down off of a balcony, and is like trying to get out of this walled-in patio.
Is the dad shooting at them at this point? Yes,
he's shooting at them. Bullets are kind of going everywhere.
Yeah, horrible shot. I thought of Dumb and Dumber.
Truly.
And you're a horrible shot. It's one of those.
So Dwight Yoakam has just had his hand crushed in like a 7-foot steel door, limped out of there, gotten hit in the face with a sledgehammer, fallen a flight of stairs.
Are we sure it hits him in the face and not the shoulder or like... I agree with you. If that thing hit him in the face, his face should be more messed up. I don't think he necessarily has to be dead, but he should have like a dislocated jaw or something.
Yeah, I just also feel like the speed in which he like scrambles up the stairs after the whole is insane.
His recovery is swift.
And like enough so that he can overpower Jodie Foster, who we've seen at this point in the movie have like a crazy, almost like killer instinct. I just find it hard to believe. And like this is a movie of chance circumstances without a doubt. But like, it is the one disconnect I have with the movie. It's one thing where I'm like, seriously?
I mean, I hear you in the sense of her defenses are up and she's certainly capable.
Mm-hmm.
I guess other than him not having a messed up face or something, I think he's just like the villain that's suddenly back. You know, it's a little movie-ish, but he's so scary looking at this point. And this scene is so intense and good that it doesn't really bother me.
Sure.
But he overpowers her. He knocks over the dad, who is tied up still.
Yeah.
So he's useless, the dad. He's on top of Jodie Foster. And he like hits Jodie Foster. Kristen Stewart in her back pocket has stored a bunch of
needles,
you know, some type of medication for diabetes, and she's got a ton of them in her pocket.
I think they're just empty needles.
Oh, okay.
Like I think it's more of like a stabbing device and less of
gotcha.
drugging device.
She jumps up on his back, Dwight Yoakam, as he's like beating the hell out of Jodie Foster. She stabs him in the back with these needles. He reacts, throws her off. This is Fincher. This is like something he can get away with, and not everybody else would have done this, but it adds so much tension and stress and weight, stakes, whatever you want to call it, to the scene. But Dwight Yoakam straight up punches Kristen Stewart in the face. Mm-hmm. Like a deranged man punches a kid in the face, and she is down, and he won. She like cowers into the opening of the fireplace and just screams.
That's the hardest part.
Yeah. She's just screaming and watching as Dwight Yoakam now picks up a sledgehammer and raises it in slow motion over Jodie Foster's head and is like about to deliver the final blow. Forrest Whitaker, you've seen him like about to climb the outside wall in the rain, about to get away with these bear bonds. And I think he hears the gunshots going off as the dad is like
shooting like nothing, basically.
Yeah, you know, trying to do whatever he can to save his wife. And just as Dwight Yoakam's about to lay down this hammer, it cuts to Forrest Whitaker standing behind him with this silenced pistol, and he just blows his brains out from the back to the front.
Yeah.
And the headshots in this movie are so gruesome.
Yeah.
And like we talked about Jared Leto's.
He shoots him, starts to walk towards the back door, and then the front door busts open, and it's the cops. And we see the priests from The Sopranos leading the search, and cops are going all over the place. Forrest Whitaker starts to book it, runs outside, starts to climb the fence again, and a bunch of cops surround him and say like, hands in the air, hands in the air. And he reaches into his work vest to pull out the bear bonds. And they're like, you know, open your hand.
They're like, we're going to fucking kill you.
Yeah.
They're screaming that at him.
And he opens his hand, and the bear bonds are, if you've seen Stanley Kubrick's The Killing, it's the same ending.
Yeah.
He opens his hand, and the bear bonds are flying all over. They go seemingly all over New York at that point.
Floating up into the rain.
You know, the cops check in on Jodie Foster and Kristen Stewart and Steven. He pulls through. We untape him to the chair. He's actually still taped to the chair.
To this day. He's just sitting in an empty soundstage in Manhattan Beach.
Hello?
It's a sad ending, man.
Yeah.
You love Forrest Whitaker in this movie.
You really do.
It's rough seeing him get arrested at the end. And that's pretty much it. It cuts to Jodie and K-Stu in Central Park some time later, and they're going through the New York Times looking at possible real estate, a new apartment.
Again, some of the worst sunglasses ever.
Can't say I noticed. This movie looks amazing on 4K. I'm so happy, Sam. I'm so happy.
You're still just in, like, fully.
So in.
Okay. Yeah.
I love this movie so much. You know, some of the CGI is certainly dated, but I think it holds up so well. And I wish that maybe they had, you know, fleshed out this physical media release to be more retrospective and a bit more modern.
Yeah.
But I am at the same time so happy that they retained everything that was so great about that original DVD.
Sure.
It's so great to have it back in the collection and still have that, you know, personality, dated as it may be. You
know, again, I said it earlier, I'll reiterate. I had the most fun with this movie I've ever had. After watching your digital copy, I hope that there's a non-Steelbook version of this movie that's I can get for, you know, $20-25 at some point. Because I would add it to the shelf without a doubt. The suspense, like thrilling scenes are so well crafted and directed that even if I don't love every aspect of this movie, I'm on the edge of my seat. If he can give you that feeling where your like heart is beating out of your chest and your palms get sweaty, like, come on, dude, that's what we go to the movies for.
Well, Sam, we did it. This was an important one for me. I really appreciate you returning to Panic Room, and I'm thrilled to hear that you had fun.
Honestly, I've hated on this movie for a long time, if not only to just rib you as much as I can.
Yeah, you've been doing that for about 20 years. One last thing I'd like to say about this movie that I don't think we mentioned that's really interesting. Originally, Jodie Foster's character was not played by Jodie Foster. In fact, they started principal photography with another actress by the name of Nicole Kidman.
Whoa, really?
And there is footage, there are shots, identical shots from Panic Room in these special features that show Nicole Kidman and not Jodie Foster. It's very fascinating. She had an injury and had to drop out.
Whoa.
She had an injury from Moulin Rouge, some type of fractured ankle or something that like flared up while they were shooting this and had to drop out.
It's a pretty physical role. I mean,
oh, big time.
Yeah.
Jodie Foster was also pregnant when they shot this, and they had to move. She didn't know that when they started, and they had to like move around a bunch of the schedule because of that. Some of it is definitely her stunt double. They talk about that just because she was pregnant and could not do some of this stuff. So just, again, a multitude of stuff to enjoy on the behind the scenes. All right, Sam, you know what time it is. We're wishing for titles on formats that do not yet exist.
Mine's a bit cheeky, but let's do it.
Mine has nothing to do with anything we just talked about. Here we go.
I wish for a non-Steelbook version of The Social Network on 4K.
I wish for a 4K of Failsafe. Have you seen Failsafe, Sam?
No, I know it's a favorite of yours. You have a incredible original movie poster of it, right?
I do. It's a window card, I believe. It says, "Failsafe will have you sitting on the brink of eternity."
Oh, that's awesome.
This is a 1964 Cold War thriller directed by Sidney Lumet, starring Henry Fonda, among others. It's about a group of bombers carrying nuclear weapons that are on like a training mission just outside of Russia, American bombers. And this training mission basically becomes real, and they're too far in to enemy territory where they're trained that they can't listen to the mission being aborted because it may be Russians pretending to be Americans. And so it's about the president and the Russians like communicating to try to stop this accidental nuclear catastrophe. And it's so tense. I saw it as a kid, and it's an amazing military thriller.
Is it on Criterion Blu-ray?
There's a Criterion Blu-ray, yeah, but not a 4K. It'd be great.
That sounds great. I'm in. I mean, yeah, what am I going to say about The Social Network? This is David Fincher's
best movie
telling of the creation of Facebook. Written by Aaron Sorkin. Incredibly acted, incredibly well written, incredibly directed.
If you've never seen The Social Network,
yeah,
don't listen to us. Watch that.
Yeah, I missed out. I stupidly missed out on the Steelbook. I'm really hoping that they put out just a normal edition.
Okay, thus concludes another episode of Physical Therapy. Sam, happy anniversary.
Hey man, we did it. One whole year under our belts.
A big thank you to everyone who's been listening. Thank you to Kimberly, who is not with us tonight, but has done so much for this show. Thank you to Patrick Laban for our amazing music. We will see you next week.